1. So here in my block, we have this neighbor who is just the combination of every bad neighbor habit. To make things more visual, we're mainly talking about half a block here. The majority of the houses are 2 stories, except the one in the middle that is a car detailing and accessories store. So this store's roof makes every house on this block visible to each other. The major complaint is the noise. The guy blasts trash music all day long, which would not be a problem if this guy respected the volume and time allowed. Everyone in the block has called the police because of the noise after 12 a.m. at least once. When my family called the police at 3 a.m., the police told us that the sound had already exceeded the permitted decibels before the street began. But I guess money is not a problem for this guy because he keeps doing it. Since everybody was calling the police on him because of the noise, he decided to call the police because of the noise of a newborn baby crying. When the policemen arrived, they told the guy to knock it off, so that was a mini-win. Besides, the guy's also a creep that kept staring through every window. The majority of the neighbors had installed tinted windows or curtains because of this particular guy. I literally couldn't enjoy sunlight because this dude kept staring at my window whenever my underage sister was in the room. Obviously there's more, but these were the major complaints. Cue the revenge. Since this dude is used to being awake during the night blasting terrible music, he sleeps basically all morning, and absolutely hates birds chirping because it wakes him up. You can literally hear him complaining about and closing the windows when the bird starts singing. So, I decided to plan based on that. I asked every neighbor if they were okay with the birds chirping. The majority said they love it. Then I asked the detailing store if I could scatter some seeds on their roof to attract birds. The owner said absolutely yes, because the guy threw trash at the store's roof, so every single week the owner had to clean the gutters. I started scattering seeds every day at 5 a.m. on the store's roof, and in less than a week, I have a full army of birds. I also started putting things like leaves, twigs, dog hair, and other things so the birds could build nests nearby. In my window, there's also water for the birdies. Now, the most delicious part of my revenge was when I decided the birds needed a little treat. I have a friend that breeds insects for people to feed their exotic pets, so I asked him for 100 crickets to feed them. He gave me an amazing discount, and the next day I was also scattering crickets on that roof. The birds started eating the crickets, but obviously couldn't eat them all, so the rest of the dozens of crickets that escaped ran to the nearest shelter, that idiot's open balcony. You may think, couldn't he just kill the birds or something? Well, he tried, but the odds are in my favor, because the birds that come chirping on his windows are protected by ambiental law. So if he tries to harm them, he'll pay a much more expensive fine than the sound pollution one. Now, my block is the only place in the ghetto where you can wake up every day like a Disney princess, with more than 30 birds chirping and the sounds of a very distressed, evil neighbor. 2. I used to live in a really great Art Deco-era apartment building that had high ceilings, lots of built-ins, window seats, terrazzo floors. The neighbors were mostly great, and the noise wasn't too bad, though certain sounds really resonated on those floors unless area rugs were put down. We had a great D&D campaign going and met up Tuesdays and Fridays. 2 guys in particular are important here. We'll call them Mark and Ricardo. Mark was private about his personal life. We didn't know much about him at all. His relationship status, what he did for work, or the usual things one typically knows about one's friends. Just that he was fun as heck and reliable, and the kind of guy you like to have at the table. Ricardo, on the other hand, was an open book. He was loud and opinionated. He had a different boyfriend every week, drank too much, drove a Mini Cooper, and even though he was a big dude, and dressed as his TTRPG character sometimes when he went to Applebee's. But he also showed up for long campaigns, so okay. Then Ricardo started trying to out Mark to everyone we knew. Mark was a closed book about his sexual orientation one way or another. I don't know if he was gay or hetero, but was not interested in Ricardo or his drama regardless. Ricardo would also come on to him in ways that anyone would consider harassing and rude. Mark was the only one who wasn't lit on fire about this. The rest of us told Ricardo basically to shut up or F off. Ricardo would then get dramatic and say the stress was making him lose sleep, but kept being a dickhead in subtle ways when the rest of us weren't around. Kicking someone off a long-running campaign is a last resort. Usually you want someone to reform or quit. Friends on the DM. Mark was our DM, and he wasn't there yet. Then Ricardo started hearing the noises. See, Ricardo lived right below me. He said it was my high-heeled shoes. But I don't wear high-heeled shoes. I was staying at my boyfriend's house and wasn't home. He even had maintenance check my place, the others adjacent, the ceilings and such, but nothing was found amiss. He's complained about it, clicking noises, ball bearings at all hours when he was trying to sleep, and loud. He wasn't looking too good. I looked clueless and made sympathetic noises. I was studying psychology and suggested he should see his doctor. This went on for about 4 more months, yet socially inept Ricardo kept being a jerk and Mark just kept being chill. Finally, Ricardo surprised us all. He was moving next week. After he vacated his place, I brought the crew up to my apartment, rolled up the rug, threw down the cat toys, including the homemade and very loud ones, the steel ones that rolled across the floor, the ones that rattled in the little cage things. Watched the cats chase them all over the bare terrazzo floors, as they had been doing for the past nearly 6 months right over Ricardo's place. When I get home, I'd pick them up, put the rugs back, and no one knew, while we all had beers. 3. My old company manager would always ask for a sick note from your doctor. It's about $50 for my GP. I was at his office when my boss Mary called me to make absolutely sure I had a sick note. I had 2 company credit cards, one for internal use, tools, etc., and one for external use, billed to clients. Neither would work at my doctor's office. I called Mary back. My company credit cards aren't working. Use your own and file an expense report. No, I'm not here to lend money to a multi-million-dollar company. Fine, use mine. The medical secretary said, we can't take credit cards over the phone. Then you won't be paid for today. Send them that email right away, please. Mary sends it. I reply to the email. I'll need a union day to file a grievance, as you refusing to pay me is against our collective agreement. There is nothing in our collective agreement stating that I need a note for 1 day. It's for 3 consecutive days. I'll also need a second union rep, as I can't represent myself. Union days for grievance can't be refused for any reason unless there's a catastrophic event. Mary calls me back. Fine, I'll pay you. No, the violation has already occurred, and the grievance demand filed. We are proceeding with this, but my union rep will be in touch. For 8 hours pay and want of a sick note. Me plus the other union rep, and 4 hours to prepare, plus 2 hours travel each, 12 hours unpaid, 4 hours each to present the grievance. Grievance was won at the first stage, so I got paid my 8 hours, but the company had to pay 20 man-hours out of pocket, unable to client, because Mary was enforcing her own rules outside the collective agreement, as a management right. I was maliciously complying with our grievance process, which I brought up during the presentation. Bonus content. Mary stated that what was written in the collective agreement was open to interpretation, and she was correct, and I was wrong. I asked her to flip to the last page of the PDF, and she did. Who had signed the contract? VP of HR, National Union Rep, VP Operations, Matthew, and you, the VP of your union accreditation. So what you're saying is, you, who wasn't at all present during the negotiations, knows more about the contract that I have negotiated for the last 3 renewals. This meeting is over. I'll have my answer emailed to you within 7 days. You have 3 business days as per our collective agreement, which you know so well. I'd hate to file yet another grievance for non-compliance. 4. When I got my first job and moved away from my hometown, I shared a house with 3 roommates. 2 of them were working professionals, but the other was still in university. Mario. He only cared about himself and was persistent in showing it. His parents worked hard to send him money for his rent and expenses, but he would call them and scream, complaining that it wasn't enough for him to buy the things he needed. He then got a part-time job but used most of his salary to buy really expensive cigarettes, some with metallic boxes. He would smoke at the entrance of our house and leave the cigarette butts on the floor at the door. He would never pick them up. In the house we had a turns-based cleaning system. Between the four of us, we would split a different area of the house each week and rotate the next one. If you didn't clean your area by the end of the week, you would have to pay a fine. We all agreed to the system when signing the lease, but Mario very soon decided to just pay the fines and never clean. He was the messiest of us all, especially in the kitchen, and he wouldn't clean a bit. One day, all the cutlery was just gone from the kitchen. The other two guys and I asked each other about it and realized that Mario probably had accumulated it in his room. So we went to ask him, and he said he did have it and all that. He would put it back later. A couple of hours later, I found all the dirty cutlery just dumped in the sink. Mind you, we didn't have a dishwasher, so we just left them there for a while until someone washed them. Probably not Mario, though. Every now and then, Mario would arrive home very late from partying, and he would walk in the house singing out loud, waking us up as a result. One morning, as I was about to leave for work, I got a strange feeling when I passed by his room. He had left his door slightly open and something felt odd. I knocked and got no response, so I opened the door more and saw what had drawn my attention. He had left a clothes iron plugged in. I walked in, through this terrible mess of a room full of dirty clothes and unfinished meals. I got to the iron and noticed it was really hot. I unplugged it and walked out of the room. There are probably more things that he did, but this list is already long. I was so fed up with him, and did talk to him about the iron and things that he should be more respectful of, but he would just say, "Sorry, yes, I will," and then still do the same. One day I found a way to relieve the annoyance he gave me. He was in the shower playing really loud music while singing. I was fed up with him, so I decided to go out for a walk, but man, I wished I could just turn off his music. Just right before leaving, I realized there was a way to stop his music, disconnecting the Wi-Fi modem. I did it and crossed my fingers, hoping he wouldn't have data on his phone and that he was using YouTube for music. I waited a couple of minutes as maybe his video was still loading from the buffer, and then finally, success! His music stopped playing. As I was already rushing out, I heard him grunt and complain, what's going on?" Oh, and just right before I left for my walk, I reconnected the modem so that he wouldn't find out. That was an older, crappy modem, and it would take around 5 minutes or more for the internet to get back. Knowing him, he would probably have given up after that much, though. 5. A few years back, I worked in a corporate office where things ran pretty smoothly, until our new boss, Mr. Micromanage, arrived. Mr. M was obsessed with one thing, following company policies. He didn't care if policies were outdated, inefficient, or outright absurd. If the rule existed, you had to follow it perfectly. And he loved catching people not complying. One Monday morning, he called a meeting to lecture us on policy adherence. He ended his speech with, "If it's in the manual, you follow it. No exceptions." I'm not a fan of being micromanaged, but hey, rules are rules, right? I knew that our company's policy manual hadn't been updated in years, and some policies were questionable, so I decided to have a little fun. One of the most outdated rules was about how to handle printed documents. According to this gem, any printed document, no matter how minor, needed to be reviewed and stamped by our document compliance officer before being distributed. Oh, and guess what? That position had been eliminated in a round of budget cuts 2 years ago, but hey, Mr. M said no exceptions. The next day, I printed out a standard quarterly report that everyone in the office needed. When people asked for it, I told them, Sorry, I can't distribute it until it's been reviewed and stamped. I sent an email to Mr. M asking where I could find the non-existent document compliance officer. He came storming over to my desk, confused. Just send out the report. I'd love to, but as per company policy, it needs to be reviewed and stamped first. Where should I send it? He pauses and glares. Just follow the policy. I nodded enthusiastically and let it be. Word spread quickly, and soon everyone in the office was complying with every arcane policy in the manual. Karen from HR, she started enforcing the dress code policy that required all employees to wear business formal attire at all times. Suddenly, everyone was showing up in suits and ties, and people in accounting were running spreadsheets in cocktail dresses. Jake from marketing, he made sure to send a request to Mr. Micromanage every time he needed to make a 10-cent photocopy, as per the ancient policy that all expenditures, no matter how minor, must be approved by management. By the end of the week, the entire office was a disaster. People were wasting time and resources, projects were delayed, and everyone was cranky from wearing stiff, formal clothes. Mr. M tried to reprimand us, but we just kept saying, "Sorry, sir, just following the policies, like you said." It only took 1 week of chaos for Mr. M to call another meeting, where he begrudgingly told us to use common sense instead of following every single policy. He even promised to update the manual. And that, my friends, is how our office turned into a temporary circus of hilarious compliance, until our boss finally learned that some rules are meant to be bent. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 387. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and share the video with friends and family. And also support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. Yes, the fireworks are back. Great, wonderful. Doesn't bother me at all. Not re-recording, because I'll be here all night if I have to do that. Although that was well timed. Yeah, so support me on my Patreon. Okay, let's see. I don't think we have any other bits of business today, beyond me going outside and slapping people for letting off fireworks on November 4th. It's meant to be the 5th, usually, unless it's a public display. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. But no other business today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, let's keep it on theme for the season. What is your opinion on fireworks? Do you think that silly people with more money than sense should be, guess what my opinion is, should have free and unrestricted access to these things so they can let them off whenever they like? Or should it be more restricted and maybe you need to apply for a permit or something to get them? I mean, they are age restricted, definitely. You need to be, I think 18 is the age, from what I recall. When I worked in a convenience store, they sold fireworks at one point, then they just stopped because probably too much hassle, really. Or are you of the mind, no, freedom, go bang, and yay and stuff. Other opinions are allowed. I'm not going to snap at you if you disagree with me. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look, there they go again, at the answer of the day from a previous video. You know, it's the pets I feel really bad for, because I can stick my headphones on, crank my music up, have a fan going, I can drown this sound out. But, well, the cats and dogs, there's probably a few gerbils and hamsters in the neighborhood, maybe a snake called Albert. I can kind of hear the dogs. I don't think the mic's picking it up because it's kind of way in the distance. I can hear the dogs barking. It's just a bit traumatizing, the poor things. Anyway, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one comes from Revenge is Ice Cream 2924, and I believe the question was, who is your favorite Batman? The correct answer, of course, being Kevin Conroy. But let's see. Let's look at what the answers are. Okay, today's answer comes from Jenna Gets Creative. Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, and George Clooney all played live-action Batmans during my childhood. I think I liked Keaton the best, and I kind of wish it had been his Batman opposite Schwarzenegger in the 1997 film. Well, let's be honest, Jenna, had that been Keaton's Batman, it would have been a very short film, because that Batman had a machine gun on the Batmobile. As to me, you're chill. Would have been exciting to see, I suppose. Although I do like when my Batman don't use guns. They just punch poor people in the face repeatedly. That's what I like my Batman to do. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So I think I might take a break from recording for a little bit until the fireworks hush up. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.